Having a terrible memory is probably one of the things that has made me a better learner in so many aspects of everything that I've learned, and especially language learning. And it seems counterintuitive, but having a poor memory has required me to work harder. It's required me to go more in depth into each topic that I'm learning. So it's required me to not be able to just simply memorize phrases and vocabulary and quickly understand grammar concepts, because I've had to not only study those pieces, I've had to practice them, I've had to be exposed to them in so many different ways of using them. I've had to go back and relearn and reuse, and I've had to experience learning something and then forgetting something, and I've had to learn how to help myself learn. Whereas people who have a very good memory, like photographic level memory, can just maybe learn and retain that information. And at different levels, of course, there's always these different degrees of how well you can learn something. You know, there's people who have to work very hard to retain information. There's people who are just, they hear it, they know it, they can just spit it back out at you, process it. There are those people too. And then there's everywhere in between. And then there's maybe some areas, some topics that you can retain information in very well, and then others that you can't. So it's not necessarily like I'm one person or I'm the other or I'm in this place in the middle. Ultimately, we are somewhere where it's a mess. We're somewhere all over the place. But we do tend to gravitate more toward one or the other. I tend to gravitate more toward being a person who needs to work very fucking hard to retain information. And I put in that work. And that's how I retain that information. So learning a language, it's been a lot like learning karate for me, and it's like this because what I learned from there, and especially failing my first big test, my ground belt test, and then going back in and I'm no, I don't take this for an answer. I'm gonna put in 20 plus hours a week. I'm gonna do it. And I did it. I went through, I went back, I learned it, I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced until I just couldn't practice anymore. And then I went back and I leveled up and I went back and I leveled up and I went back and I leveled up and I went back, and went through my black belt. And it's been the same way with language learning. With language learning for Spanish, for example, I started learning Spanish when I was seriously 18, 19 in college. Took high school Spanish classes, and then after that it was college. I didn't try my high school classes, and so I went to college. I started practicing my liberal studies degree, and I had a tutor on the side because I was challenging myself to go into bilingual education where I needed to be fluent in Spanish, and I was just starting. I was nowhere near where I needed to be. I was in over my head. I was in a sink or swim situation. So I got a lifeboat. I got a tutor, and so I was in my basic level Spanish classes, and then I went into a class that was actually taught in Spanish after about 2 years of college level classes, and I was like, I don't understand anything. And I went up to the teacher afterwards and I was like, I don't understand anything, I need help. And she's like, okay, here's a recommendation, here's a tutor. At that time, it was writing down on paper, here's a phone number. Because that was a while ago, that was over 10 years ago. And that was a way that I got that extra support. And I went in and I was like, I'm going to do it. Very similar to what I did with my karate. I was like, okay, what do I need to get myself up there? I need to work harder. I found a way to work harder. So what my bad memory has taught me, my slower learning has taught me, is not only work ethic to work harder, but also it's taught me that through that process of going to other resources, going to opportunities, it's shown me those other opportunities. It's forced me to go more in depth. It's forced me, when I learn a karate form, to go to practice it and then say, okay, well, what specifically is my body doing here? Like, how is my hip turned out? How are my fingers? Where are my toes? What direction am I, where's my head facing? You know, like what part of, how does my hand like slide across this person's body, whatever it is, and to be very, very, very detailed. And that has been one of the advantages of being a slower learner, having a poor memory, is the details that come with that, because you spend so much time going through something, like you spend so much time studying vocabulary, for example, and okay, helicopter, and the bugs, okay, so you spend so much time studying vocabulary, for example, and at some point you're just like, this, you know, like I gotta find some way to entertain myself, because there's only so much you can do, like flashcards, and also that doesn't help you when you go into a practical situation. You need to also practice like conversation, you need to practice or like writing out sentences, journaling something that has that fluency aspect to it, and that's really crucial, having that piece. It's the same way with karate. It's like you have the forms, and then that's like the fluency piece, and then looking at each component, that's like the studying piece and each of the techniques. And so what I learned is okay, there are all these different ways that I can learn. I can do conversation. I found ways to have conversations with people online. I found tutors. I found extra resources. I found before a big test in that Spanish class that I was talking about, I was like, oh no, this is not going to go well. And so I spent, like I had the week spring break or whatever, and I spent that whole week just studying. I just got in and I'm just like, okay, how can I understand these articles that are in Spanish? And I figured out a reading strategy that worked for me to understand these articles, a way to read in Spanish. It required reading 3 times, looking up every word that I didn't understand, making annotations and notes all over the place. Like, I had to work really hard, it took a lot of time. I went in and did that test. I got like a B, I think, and I was like, man, I got a B. Like, I studied all week, we break with studying, and then I talked to the instructor. She was like, well, you know, that was actually one of the high scores on the test. Okay, it paid off actually, and but it was, you know, a lot of work. And honestly, those kind of classes where it's like, I'm so fucking grateful I got a B or even a C, like I've been there, those are the classes that have taught me the most. The classes where I just kind of breezed through and got an A at the end, it was like, okay, yeah, whatever, I did it. I didn't respect them. When I had to work hard for a B or even a C, I really respected it, and I learned more, and it challenged me. And sure, there were some classes where I had to work hard to get an A, like that's of course, but the point is that the classes actually said, like, okay, you have to work up to this information, we're not just going to bring it down to you. That's where I grew the most, not just like in my language abilities, but as a person. And that's also why that I teach the way that I do and run my YouTube channel and brand the way that I do, is because the skills that have helped me to become a successful language learner are the same skills that I use across all of these different things that I do. And all of these different things that I do, like karate, like kundalini, like neuro-linguistic programming, hypnosis, yoga, like I do a lot of gardening, I do a lot of things. And it's a struggle sometimes to manage all of those things, and also multiple languages, and I struggle, and but it has made me into this person who can jump in and figure something out, whether that's learning a new language, whether that's like in my Spanish was like, oh no, I need something, I need to get up there. There was a time when I stopped and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna work now, when I started teaching, and then I realized that I was like, my life was slipping away from me and I wasn't doing the things that I wanted to do, like learning Spanish. And so I realized that, and I found a way to start, even just a little bit at a time. And so the reason I do all of these things and show all of these things here is because language learning is not just language learning. Language learning is not just, I'm going to study Spanish at my desk. Language learning is, I'm gonna take a break, I'm gonna go outside, I'm gonna explore nature, I'm going to have other things that I like to do. I'm going to find ways to integrate my language into that. I'm going to, go around my garden and find out what all of the different names for these plants are in Spanish or French or whatever language I'm learning. And also just the ideas that come in. Like, the reason I have the ideas I do and the creativity is because of doing all these different pieces. And especially martial arts. Like, martial arts has taught me how to learn. It has taught me about myself more than like anything else I've done, because it's just like it's taught me about my body and my mind. And that is, it's so valuable. I can't even put a price tag on it. Like, and it's something that, like language, like learning a language, like it's something that sticks with me forever. It's something that I invested my time, my energy, my money into, and something that I have forever, because it's a part of me. That knowledge is a part of me, and I've spent a lot of time and resources and all effort and energy, all of these things, and all of these things that I've learned. And again, at the core, it's like they're coming into me, into who I am and what I can do with my life and my experience, and together to support language learning, to support my Kundalini work, to support my coaching work, to support all of these different pieces. And having a poor memory has really been like a doorway to this, because it's forced me to go in deeper to see, like, okay, what am I going to try? And try this, and try this, and try this, and try this. And ultimately, what it's done for me is it's expanded me so much, because I learned how to be a better learner. I've learned how to learn more quickly. And now sometimes it seems like, oh, Sarah, she picks that up so quickly, she got a new karate form, whatever, and it's like, she understands it and she sees those details and she picks them up, and it's like, okay, yeah, she learns easily. And it's like, no, I really don't. Like, I had to, I do, when you learn enough about something, it becomes easier to learn more about it. It's still not easy, but it's easier than when you started to learn a more advanced topic. And it's really cool, because even like with Spanish, or with Spanish especially, because of my Spanish level, when I learn something new about Spanish, like having a conversation, or I need to learn whatever it is, like I can pick it up and like context, and I can just acquire that, as well as new languages. I can acquire new languages much more easily than I did Spanish, because I've been through that process. I know how to learn a language, and that's like, I put in all that work to learn Spanish, and what that did for me was not only teach me Spanish, but how to learn languages. And so it's seemingly easier, but only because I put in so many hours, like thousands of hours over the last decade, and not even so much over the last couple of years, but putting in all that time, that has made me a better learner. And sure, your memories, are always going to be like worse and whatever, but we can become better learners, and we can become more educated in the area that we're studying, so that we can learn more about it more easily. And also just being in our areas of interest helps as well. When we're learning a language, to say, okay, I'm interested in reading about plants, or I'm interested in reading anime, maybe you're learning Japanese and like something that interests you, that is also like, okay, this is gonna kind of propel me forward because it's an area I'm interested in. But yeah, that is my take on how having a poor memory has supported my learning, at least, and the advantages of it, and a little overview into what I do here and the direction I'm moving forward in with my language learning and my overall brand and all of the other things that I do here. Thank you so much. I'll see you back here